Welcome back to another episode of Cody Builds. On tonight's episode, we are finally getting to work on the 73 Charger. It's up on the table. We're ready to brace this thing up and get after this rocker panel first. That is our first goal here. We've got the worst part of the car here, all this collision damage where this is all shoved in. We have this rocker panel already, plus all of the inner wheelhouse and all the stuff that goes with it on this side. So the first thing we're gonna do though is we're gonna brace this car up. If you know anything about these Dodge Chargers, any Mopar products really, they are not frame-on cars. I'm just saying not all Mopar products. There are a few out there that were frame-on, but these Chargers, the B-body cars, they are not frame-on cars, they're unibody cars. That means that the body and the frame structure is all integrated. There is a front subframe, starts up here, comes down underneath the floor, really handily actually. You can see where all this rust is. That's right over the top of this subframe here. So what we need to do is we need to link this front subframe with the back subframe because the rocker is a structural component of this car. So if we just go hacking this rocker out, what this car is going to do, it's going to taco right in the middle. The floor pan's going to collapse and we're going to be sad and we're not going to have a car to fix anymore. So we need to first brace this thing up to keep that from happening. We are going to use some 2x2 steel and we're going to brace from the rear section of this car to the front section of this car. We may even put up some braces off of that brace up to the roof line here just to keep things kind of held up in place while we cut all of this and the rocker out of this car. Once we have it braced up, we're gonna start drilling spot welds. We've got spot welds, spot welds, spot welds all down the side of this car. We've got to drill out all those spot welds on the top and bottom of the rocker, all along the pillar piece here. We've got to drill all that stuff out so we can get this rocker cut out of the car. Once we're able to get the rocker out of the car, we'll be able to bring the new one in and we'll be able to figure out what we need to do to reintegrate that rocker onto the car. It is not a brand new rocker. It is off of an old pre-existing vehicle that was cut up for parts. So we do have the entire piece. It is in good condition. It is mostly rust-free. So we may have some patching to do on it, but it's in 1,000 times better condition than this one is. And it's gonna solve our issue of all of this ugliness right here. So we're gonna get to work here. The first thing I'm gonna do is start making up some floor patches and braces for the inside of the car. And I'm gonna get Jeff going on drilling out all these spot welds. All right, so you can see we've got the subframe exposed there. Now we can take our block here, we can weld it directly to the subframe. It's going to give us a much more positive connection than trying to weld anything down to this rusty floor that could have easily pulled away from the subframe. And then we will weld our bar onto that and then back to this area directly over the top of the subframe in the back. That's the general idea there. This should give us a nice strong section now in the middle of the car where the rocker panel currently is, but soon will not be. My helmet is on cut, not weld. A little bit bright. Pretty solid. Sounds solid to me. Yep. Okay, so you can see the subframe structure here. And this is what we tied our steel to on the top side, welded that to. And then if you look across here, there's really nothing from here all the way down. There's a couple little brackets here, floor brackets, but really there's no structure other than the sheet metal of the floor between here and the back of the car. So we're just looking at this pinch weld where the floor meets the rocker, and it's already so rusty and crusty. Rather than try and fight all the pinch welds, we're gonna just go ahead and slice this thing off and completely separate it. And then we're gonna have to rebuild the flange on the floor when we get the new rocker in place. So I'm gonna go ahead, cut that off now, and start to separate this rocker from the floorboard. Still got a couple a couple spot welds up in here that need to be cut out. That's why that spot's being stubborn. Even though there's this, you can see it's this kind of third layer in here. This piece right here, and it's a brace that's attached on the inside of this. That's the reason for that. Is this is the structure where your door pillar is. Comes down into here, so this has to carry basically the weight of the door sitting right here, and that's why there's extra bracing in there. I think if I get these couple spot welds out, then it should come out from there. Okay, you can see we got the outer rocker panel off for most of the way up here. We got a little overzealous. We got to thinking about it, and we're not entirely sure how much or how far up the rocker goes, our replacement rocker. So we kind of went on hold here. We know it goes past this seam, but we're not entirely sure that it goes all the way to the front. There's a good deal of rust up on the bottom of this, so we're gonna end up patching this up, fixing it up anyways. We may end up having to just patch and repair the front part of this rocker and then butt weld the replacement in someplace in this area here. And then we'll have to figure out also how this kind of inner rocker floor tie was cut off of the other car. Once we have all that figured out and sorted, we should be able to get the new inner outer rocker welded into the floor once we get this piece removed. So what we did notice is when we cut this inner quarter panel away from the rocker here, the roof did settle a bit. Now, we know for certain, we knew that the roof was high-sided on this side. And what I believe that was is some of the memory in the metal from where it's all crunched up, releasing itself and settling the roof back down to the appropriate level. By eyeball, the roof already looks significantly better. We took a few height measurements from common points on the floor here up to the roof, and we're getting the exact same height measurements across on both sides now. And also we took some kind of loose square measurements, and it's starting to look a little bit more square as well. Now obviously we still got a whole bunch of damage up in the corner here. That might still affect things a little bit, but we do feel like even with this just little tiny brace in here, the roof is already settled back to about the appropriate height that it needs to be here. One of the other factors is going to be once we start getting in the inner wheel tub and all that stuff, the way all that kind of lines up is going to dictate a little bit of this height as well. All right, it's a new night in the shop. We are back working on the Charger again. Jeff's working on getting the inner rocker, all the spot welds drilled out on that. This is our new rocker piece. So you can see here, it's got the pillar structure, the door jamb, the inner fender here, the inner fender well, all the bracing and everything for the package tray back here, as well as all of the structure up into the back sail panel of the car. The way this was cut out, you can see the rocker was actually cut into when this was pulled off the other vehicle. So what I'm gonna do here tonight is I'm gonna work on getting the rocker closed back up and reattached. So this thing just kind of splayed open. I think it probably was hanging off the car. To me, it looks like that was what happened, like they cut into it, and this part may have been still attached to the car, probably here at this brace section, and maybe there was some pulling or jockeying on this thing, and it kind of spread the rocker open. But you can see how much cleaner the inside of this rocker is. There's a little bit of surface rust on this, but nothing too crazy. While we got it off the car, we're gonna go ahead and get all that cleaned up and repainted so we can stop any of the rusting that's already happening here. So my goal for tonight is gonna be to get this closed up and re-welded back together and get this thing prepped to go back into the car. This is the piece that I cut out of the rocker that's all jacked up here. You can see it's been hammered on and cut into in a couple spots. So we're gonna go ahead and replace this with a fresh piece of metal. So I just got some 18 gauge here, and then we're just gonna trace this out roughly. I'm gonna leave a little extra at the top because I need to fold this top section over. Okay, so the first thing that I need to do here is, you can see this has a little shoulder to it on this piece here. So we're gonna bend in a little bit of a shoulder here. I'm just going to use some pliers. We're going to bend this in a little bit. We can form it with a hammer and dolly if we need to, but we're just going to get something roughly going first here. Okay, you can see we put a little bit of curve in that, smoothed it out a little bit with the hammer and dolly, just a little bit. Now I want to go get it fit on the rocker. Okay, yeah, I really like that. I can actually make this work pretty well. All right, you can see I got my next patch done here. This was what we cut out, and you can see it was just a little thin, a little rusty. Went ahead and cut that out. I got my next patch here. We got it all primed up, ready to go in. It's gonna go in just like this. We're gonna get this welded in place. Gonna get this edge welded down, and we still got quite a bit of grinding to do on this front edge, but once we get this piece welded in, and we get this kind of front edge cleaned up a little bit, essentially we've got our floor, the spot where our floor welds down to our rocker, all repaired. Now remember, this was splayed way open, but just kind of working from one end back to the other, we were able to close that gap up, get it back, weld it back together, and get these kind of really rusty, crusty parts patched up. Now we still do have some more patching to do further back, but once this is done, I'm going to work my way to the back, and we'll address some of those things before we go and put the rocker on. Jeff's made really good progress over here. He's got the inner rocker removed all the way up to where the new rocker is going to go in. I do have some patching and repairing back here that I want to do before the rocker goes back in place, only because these will be a lot harder to get at once it's in the car. And you can see down here, we've got quite a bit of rust on the inside here. Now, some of this is where the quarter panel is going to meet the rocker, but I've got a good chunk of the rocker missing here that we want to cut this back and get this part of the rocker patched up. So we're going to do all that. We're going to get all of that done before the rocker goes in place. So I'm going to keep at it here. We're going to get this piece welded in. So even our replacement panel here obviously needs some repair. Now this is significantly better than the one that was on the car. So we're gonna metal repair all this in here, repair the outer wheelhouse, the wheel arch lip, all the way back and around to the back. Now it seems like a lot of work, yes, but it is salvageable. Mostly this thing is pretty solid. It's just down in the corners here and all along the lip that are rough. So we're gonna be able to salvage this piece. But I did notice up here that there's a pretty good rust hole up here that I wanted to get to and patch. And I was really struggling with this seam right here, and it turns out this is a lead seam. So, as most of you probably know, back in the day, anywhere there were joints, like on the sail panel up there, down here in the rocker, they would use lead as a filler. And so I'm just gonna use the propane torch here, and you're gonna see this lead start to melt out of here. We're gonna see exactly what we're dealing with once we get all this lead melted out. You can see it there, starting to drip away. It's gonna reveal the spot welds that are underneath this. I'll be able to drill those out once we get all the lead out of here. There's a good amount of lead in this joint. You can see I got all of that first layer off now. I got the pinch weld cleared mostly all the way back to here. I still have a little bit more work to do back here, but just keeping in the theme, I'm working this way up the rocker. So what I'm actually going to do next is I'm going to cut out this section here. It gets down pretty thin down in here. I'm going to bring that all the way over just above the pinch weld, come up, and we're going to replace this section here with some fresh steel, and then we're going to come back and we're going to rebuild this back corner. So first things first, so I want to cut this out and cut out some fresh metal to put in here. So we got this patch done here on the rocker. We're gonna keep moving on back. We're gonna reconstruct the back section here. Now the top edge of the inside of this rocker is all pretty good. So I'm gonna actually be able to cut right along this front edge, come down, pull apart this pinch weld. We're gonna build this from the inner rocker out. So we'll have to do some patching on the inner rocker down here, reconstruct this pinch weld, and get all this cleaned back up. We're gonna have to take some of the metal out up here so we can see exactly what's rotted up in here and just start reconstructing everything from the innermost layer, working our way out. Once this is done, we're down to kind of repairing the wheel lip, which I'm not overly concerned with at this moment. That'll be more of an issue when we get the new quarter panels ready to be put in place. Same thing with the back of the wheel arch back here. We'll probably replace some of that stuff when it's on the car. Haven't made that call yet. But in the meantime, Jeff's been working on getting the inner rocker removed from the car here. You can see he's got pretty much the entire inner rocker removed out of the car. Well, it is. The entire inner rocker is removed. He also was able to remove this chunk of the outer rocker from up underneath the door pillar here and the firewall. Very complicated piece. You can see how many spot welds he had to drill out on this. It's really just persistence. You got to stick with it, find all the spot welds. And Jeff has been really good about getting all the spot welds and stuff drilled out of this thing. Now we've got Swiss cheese, so we're gonna have to come back here, fix a lot of this before we weld up the new rocker. I'm gonna basically have to reconstruct a lot of this section of the rocker here because you can see it's very thin. It's kinked right here. So I'm gonna use this piece as a template to rebuild this front edge of the rocker panel here, which goes up in there. And then once that's done, we'll weld that back onto this rocker, put the whole thing back in the car, and we'll basically have the rocker repaired all the way back to the back of the wheel tubs. Then it'll be time to switch our focus to the structural repairs in the floor, the rust repairs in the floor, and then repairing the back rails and the back trunk area and all that, moving back. Continuing work on the rocker here, you can see I patched the inner rocker panel here. Now before I go and cap the outer rocker, we had quite a bit of rust up behind the wheel well here. And this is one of the more complicated areas of this section of the car. You've got the inner wheel tub, you've got the outer wheel tub, you've got the inner rocker, you've got the outer rocker, and then you also have the inner fender panel here that comes together. So you have 5 panels that all kind of meet up in this corner, and this was all rusted out. So it's sometimes when you have that much rust, it's a little difficult to decipher what goes where and how the original pieces worked. So I just took my time. I made a couple templates here. So the first one that goes in is just this rectangular patch, and it's going to go in first, and it's the most simple one here. It slides in, and this is a patch for our inner fender panel here. So that's going to go something like that. And then on top of that, we're going to take this panel, and I just took my time and I made up a couple different patches out of cardboard here, and I just did this until I got something that kind of made sense. So this one's going to meet up with our inner rocker panel here. This is actually a 6th panel, to be honest with you. This is a panel that's between the inner rocker and the inner fender panel here. So I matched it back up to where it's going to go. It's going to wrap around, and I don't have the bend on this right. We'll have to rebend it, and then it's going to weld to the back of our inner rocker panel here. And what I did was I kind of matched these. You can see, I think the original one came all the way over to here and then was diagonally braced up to here. This was all rusted out, and the only way for me to get into that is to cut through some good metal, which I don't necessarily want to do. So we're just not going to extend that brace. This is already going to be more brace than what was there with it all rotted out, because it was all basically gone. So we're going to make up these 2 pieces, and then separately we've got to weld on a flange to our inner rocker here, and then we've got to make up our outer rocker piece, and then a couple patches. We'll have to cut this back even a little more because there's still some rust in there for our inner fender and our inner fender here and our outer fender here. So still got a lot of patching to do here, but it's starting to come together pretty nicely. I'm really happy with the outcome of the inner rocker panel here. Inner rocker panel is completely done now. I just need to clean up all this. I'm just going to wire wheel all this stuff up. It's all solid. It's just scaly. So we're going to wire wheel all this up and get it painted. And then we're not that far from getting our outer rocker panel, which is all of this is going to be covered up by the quarter panel. So there's going to be yet one more layer. And there's 3 layers in the pinch weld here. That'll end up being the inner rocker, the outer rocker, and the quarter panel. So a lot of this work is going to get covered up, so we don't have to go too nuts with how clean we grind on all this stuff. It doesn't really matter. So you can see I welded actually from the other side, so you can see we've got pretty good penetration all the way through the panel here on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and get to making up these 2 patches. Once these are done, I'll be able to make my outer rocker, and then all that's left for this whole piece is just patching the inner and outer wheel tubs, fixing up some of this stuff here and the lip of the wheel tub. And that'll be it. This piece will be ready to go back in the car. You guys can see, so that's, you know, a day's worth of work getting the other patch done on this side, this patch done here, and then getting all the rot cut out of this, figuring out where the new brackets need to go or how they need to be made to match close to what they originally were. And now we're just ready to cap off this rocker and be done with this rocker section, except for the very front. So really good progress today. Speaking of progress, there's less car than we started with today. Jeff was busy cutting out all of the damaged structure up here. As you can see on this piece here, we've got all that structure. So we're going to use the good stuff that hasn't been in an accident. We cut it at a nice, easy line for us to identify here. We're going to come in and clean all this stuff up, and we're going to rust treat all of this. And then the package tray was cut out and straightened right on the seam. So that's perfect. We'll be able to just put in right at the seam again and weld that right back in place. Line up our braces and everything here, get all this welded back in place. and then get our rocker back in place and get it welded in. Now we won't be welding it into the back braces just yet because this obviously is the damaged part of the floor, so we're gonna have to repair all of this before we go and weld the rocker in. But the floor structure, aside from being rotted up here, is actually straight up here at the front half of the car. So we are gonna be able to reconnect some of these floor braces, this one in particular, and then all the structure up here will be able to reconnect all that to the rocker. So the car will be connected back here in the sail panel and up here in the front, about halfway up the rocker. It'll still be disconnected at the floor here when we go to repair all of this floor structure. So we'll be putting a lot of rigidity back in the car with the inner wheel tubs and all of this roof structure and the package tray. All of that's gonna give us a lot more rigidity back into the car. But you can see, I mean, as we've been cutting stuff out, the car hasn't moved a millimeter. So it's braced up right now. It's braced from the bottom side, and then we've got the roof kind of braced up here. So far so good on the frame jig. The only time we saw any movement was when we were relief cutting some of this beat up structure up here, and that's where the roof actually sank down and actually squared itself back out because this side of the car was shoved up. So once we disconnected all the floor structure, that inner fender liner, all of this kind of relaxed back to where it's supposed to be. So far so good. We're making really good progress, and we're just taking this a little bit at a time. And so that's really gonna do it for today. As I said, guys, we're just doing this a little bit at a time. If you look at this car in the whole, you could be overwhelmed, right? But if you just do one thing a day, you get through one little project a day, and you just keep making progress, before you know it, the ball gets rolling downhill, you get some momentum, and the next thing you know, you're well on your way to having a finished project. So all that said, guys, if you don't work on your projects that will not work on themselves, get out in the garage, get building, and I'll see you on the next episode of Cody Builds.